All right, everyone, welcome back in. It's another episode of the Wobcast 2.0. Super Bowl week, everyone. It is the ultimate point of the season for NFL fans. Even if your team is not in the big game, all eyes on Las Vegas and Super Bowl 58 coming up here in just a few days. But even without the Vikings playing in the big game, we've got some Vikings headlines and some Vikings news to discuss and throw around. And to help me do that is my partner and co-host Giles. We bring him in now. Hey, partner, how you doing?
Hey, bud. How we doing? Happy Thursday. So excited for Super Bowl week. My goodness. Although I would love to see the men in purple suiting up on Sunday. No such luck, but definitely excited for the Super Bowl. I always, as a big football fan, love all the things surrounding the Super Bowl, pre, post, during. There's a lot of fun going on. So excited to see who wins. It should be a really good matchup, to be honest. There are two very stout teams. I do have a prediction, but we'll save that for later. But really excited for Sunday.
Yes, let's get to our Super Bowl predictions momentarily. That'll be coming up later on in this episode of the Wobcast 2.0. First, I think we should focus our attention here on the Vikings. So we will, for a final time, before we know if he's in or not, we'll talk Jared Allen and Hall of Fame. But I think more currently, we need to talk Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, and Vikings offseason moves. So let's do that. Giles, I think Super Bowl week, it's always a natural time to think about your team and how far or not far you are from being the Chiefs or the Niners, right? Mm-hmm. Don't you think about that a lot? Yeah.
Oh, yep. Keeps me up.
And yeah, it probably does. So I sang sort of a pessimistic tune a couple of weeks ago saying I think the Vikings are closer to the bottom of the North than they are to the top. So from that standpoint, you'd be like, well, he doesn't think the Vikings are anywhere near being, one of the two teams playing in the Super Bowl. And maybe these are juxtaposed positions and maybe they're not. But, even though I think we're closer to the bottom of the North than we are to the top, I don't think they're, 10 miles away from contending to be in a Super Bowl in the next couple of years. It's kind of a weird position I feel I'm in, but that's really how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would say I can totally identify with that line of thinking because I think it's easy to get pessimistic or to have I don't want to say a false reality, but we'll use that for the sake of this conversation regarding the 2023 Vikings because they were so injured. So when you look at their performance and what they put on the field, there were a lot of areas where you get really frustrated and beyond their defensive or their injury woes, they made so many mistakes. When you look at turnovers, they were the most turnover-prone team in the entire league. So it's easy to take a glance over to Egan and say, wow, we're nowhere near a Super Bowl. However, when you flip that script and you identify all the players that are coming back from injury, I mean, knock on wood, hopefully that they come back to true form, there are a lot less deficiencies than meets the eye. Now, I would say if you're kind of evaluating the 2024 Vikings and you're able to bring back someone like Danielle Hunter, bring someone back like Kirk Cousins, now, whether you want to or not, that's a different conversation. But let's say if that does happen for the sake of the 2024 season, you have Pro Bowlers at a lot of positions. I think if you're able to beef up on your defensive line, if you get a real meaty, pass rush heavy defensive lineman, someone that can beef up the interior, I think the entire predication of our defense looks very, very different because we couldn't win one-on-one matchups. Your defense looks very, very different. If you get all of your players back on offense, I think we have one of the most premier weapon sets in the entire NFL. If you're able to bring back your offensive line, there's a lot of good pieces here, but it's all predicated on free agency, injury, and replacing few of those kind of bright red spots that are really lacking, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, it does make sense. So I believe one of the players they're not going to have to replace is wide receiver Justin Jefferson. Now, he was the subject of some headlines here in the last 24, 30 hours.
It's true.
24 hours because he's making the rounds on Radio Row in Las Vegas at the Super Bowl. Now, please come at me or let us know if you disagree. But I didn't hear anything yesterday that was like a warning flag for me that this deal might not end up getting done. literally everything I heard, I expected to hear. I anticipate hearing from someone who wants to get a deal done with their current team, or the deal is done with their current team. We just don't know it yet. So I didn't, and I know not everything was hunky-dory, purple-shaded glasses from him, but remember, he's got a posture to some degree, right? Because there is no signed deal. So his agent is sitting there being like, all right, don't give this away now. Like, don't make it easy on them, on the Vikings.
Yep.
You know, like, we can go anywhere in a year or 2 years. So don't make it easy on them, you know, but don't piss them off either, you know, because I know they're really close. They're saying, you know, we're really close to this thing, so let's not piss them off. So I think it's going to get done, Giles. The one thing that I think is, you know, deadlines spur action, right? I know you know that in your world, your professional world, and you know that in the sports world. So deadlines spur action. And there isn't really a deadline here because he's under contract next year, and then the Vikings have the franchise tag. So there is not a hard and fast deadline, which is why I don't anticipate it's going to get done here by any certain time. I just feel comfortable that it will get done. So my mind is at ease when it comes to Justin Jefferson's future with the Vikings. And that's why those comments on Radio Row don't bug me. And that's why all these different trade rumors, I don't even, like, where I need the biggest bucket of cold water you can find so I can dump that bucket on these trade rumors.
Fair enough. And I appreciate your perspective there. I think it keeps me grounded because I had both a similar but also a slightly different gut reaction when I heard the words coming out of JJ's mouth initially on Radio Row. The first was, honestly, I thought he was a little bit more brash than normal regarding how much money he expected to make. Usually he was a little bit more poised when he would talk about money, and he's like, I want the bank and I deserve it and I'll go with whatever team gives me that. So I was kind of surprised to hear him talk that brashly about money. Now, he's going to get the bag. He's the best non-quarterback in the league, so he's not entirely unjustified in that regard. It was just I've never seen that side of JJ before, so that was a little bit of a surprise to me. But also, I think the second thing was more... Yeah, 100%. And then... and this is, I mean, you can shed a lot more light into this from your years inside the room when you think about Rob Brzezinski and things like this. But I thought, based on his comments, and more specifically his non-committal nature regarding talking about the Vikings, that told me that they're maybe not as close as I hoped they would be at this far. Now, like, close can mean a lot of different things, but I view that from the standpoint of agreeing on a number that maybe they're a little bit further away than they expect to be. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to reach a number, but the fact that he was relatively non-committal. He made very few comments around the Vikings are my team, we'll figure it out. The fact that that's the case tells me he's still in hyper negotiation mode, which means they're not super close. I mean, but you tell me if that's the wrong way to look at it. That doesn't mean they're not going to get to a deal. Well, but I feel like they're maybe not as close as they maybe would prefer to be at this point.
I think these two things can both be true. They are close to getting a deal done, but they are not as close as they want to be. I think those can both be true. To me, close means that there is a more than reasonable chance. There is a probability that we're going to get to a number that we can agree on at a time that we want to agree. And, you know, as a player or as someone representing a player, you want to use every leverage point you have to get into the best position, right? And you're weighing that with time and risk. Mm-hmm. And the longer Jefferson waits while they're playing games, the more risk he assumes. Anytime he's practicing or playing games, the risk right now is totally on Jefferson's side because once he gets hurt, his value goes down, right?
Yep.
Before a deal. Once a deal is signed, the Vikings have all the risk because he gets hurt or he all of a sudden is no good anymore. The Vikings are left holding the bag. So on that sort of sliding scale, right now, Jefferson is not he's not assuming any risk because he's not, I mean, he could get hit by a bus, I guess, right? So I guess from that standpoint, he's got risk, but he's not going to get hurt right now. It's unlikely he'll get hurt training. It's unlikely he'll get hurt out on Radio Row, whatever. So right now they're probably trying to use all the leverage they can use. But if he's going to show up for the offseason program and mini camps and OTAs, I mean, now he's taking risk, right? So he's going to have to either get it, agree to a number then or not go to the offseason program. And now if he decides to not go to the offseason program, now he's really kind of, I don't want to say he's being selfish, but he's kind of being selfish.
Yep.
Right? Because
he's not wanting to shed that risk. Yeah.
Yeah, because being there is good for the team, and he's not there because he doesn't want to take the risk while he's negotiating a contract. So to me, the next quasi-semi-deadline is whenever he's expected to report to TCO for an off-season program or a workout or a practice or a mini camp or an OTA. So I don't expect really anything to get done at the earliest until, April. But it won't surprise me if something's done this offseason. I think they are really close. I mentioned this before, Justin Jefferson gets the Vikings on NFL Network and Sports Center, and he gets them in the headlines. And the Wilfs like that. The Wilfs have an NFL Network on in their office in New Jersey and seeing purple and gold. Mm-hmm. Okay? Yep. So this isn't Trent Williams, an awesome left tackle. This isn't Joe Thuney. This isn't, a nondescript player.
Potatoes guy.
This isn't Derwin James, who's a flashy safety, but he's a safety. This is a guy who scores touchdowns. The Wilfs are going to sign him. It's just a matter of when. And that is my opinion and perspective.
I think you make a very, very valid point there because he is your franchise. And even if you wanted to just kind of playfully explore the idea of trading Justin Jefferson, that requires so much more risk than signing Justin Jefferson. And I mean that from the standpoint of if you were to trade Justin Jefferson, let's say some random team, even if it was the Bears for the number 1 overall pick, but let's say you get, we'll call it 3 first-round picks back for Justin Jefferson. You are trading away your franchise in some ways, right? He is your best player on the Minnesota Vikings, right?
Yep.
You're trading that away in this, hypothetical. Let's say you get 3 picks back. The Vikings and every other 32 other teams in the NFL have proven that first-round picks are not a guarantee. Even if you get the number 1 overall pick, that is going to be a difficult haul. Let's say you trade Justin Jefferson for 3 overall picks or 3 first-round picks, and you get Mike Hughes, and you get Lewis Seen, and you trade a first-round pick for Sam Bradford. Is that worth it? I think most people would collectively say no, a capital N no. That's absolutely not. That's not worth it. And that's applying so much pressure. And even from a statistical standpoint, it's very unlikely that you hit on 3 big draft picks in a row. Most teams do not do that. I mean, there's a few this year that have done very well. When you think about the Niners and the Lions, they've done very well with rookie draft picks. But outside of that, most teams are not great at hitting those in a row. So when you're trying to think about maximizing value out of Justin Jefferson, whether that's signing him and putting him on the field or trading him away to get additional value to go sign other players, your highest likelihood of success is keeping him in the building. Period. Full stop.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, I think you're absolutely right. So.
I think you're right about that. And I can't remember who sent this out. But it was some unbelievably astronomical asking price for the number 1 overall pick. What it would take to get from here to there, here to number 1 to get a quarterback. And someone made the commentary of, I wouldn't do that for any player in the history of the NFL. And I'm like, yeah, you would. You would do that for Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana. You would do that for him, right? So sometimes I think we get out of balance on value and what certain players are worth. And to me, it's a bird in the hand sometimes is worth 2 in the bush, right? And with Justin Jefferson, you have more than that in the hand. And I'm not saying I wouldn't take 8 first-round picks for Justin Jefferson. I guess I would probably do that. But in the reality, the realistic world of what you could get for Jefferson of just draft picks, I think it'd be very hard to come up with a package where I'd be like, yeah, we'll give him up and we'll take all those question marks.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not that position, not that player, and not at this point for the Vikings.
It would have to be a pretty darn sure thing in the quarterback position to move off of him. Because if you were to trade JJ, for example, to the Chicago Bears for the number 1 overall pick, just call it a swap, right? You're getting probably Caleb Williams if we're projecting the future, but that's not a guarantee. There's been a lot of first overall picks that have fumbled and have not done well for a variety of reasons. So I think that's a pretty big gamble. Now, if you're confident that he's your guy, I'd be willing to have that conversation if you feel like, all right, we got the next Tom Brady or whoever it might be in Caleb Williams. Okay, let's have that discussion, but that's only if you feel like he is going to be a generational guy that will change your franchise. That's the only way I'm having that conversation, but that's still a huge leap because so many number 1 overall picks just completely fumble. So that's not a great strategy, in my opinion.
Yep, I agree. So now let's transition to Cousins because I think enough said on Jefferson. We're sort of at the same place there. I don't think anyone should panic about losing Jefferson. I think something's going to get done there. And even if it doesn't get done like this offseason, they're not trading him. Cousins, I saw an interview of Cousins with my guy Neil Reynolds in Europe. And I feel the opposite on this one. I didn't love some of that. Like, he is cutthroat, man. Cousins is absolutely cutthroat. And that's not critical. I'm saying he's is maximum. Yes. Oh, yes, he is. He didn't rip the Vikings at all by any stretch. He even actually at the end of the interview said something good. But that guy, that is not a sure thing that he's coming back. I truly feel that's up in the air. It seems like you do too.
I mean, if I'm projecting, he's not going to suit up in purple ever again. I think there's no way that they're going to come to a conclusion. And I think Cousins wants at least 2 years guaranteed, and I don't think Kwesi wants to do that. If it was a 1 year fully guaranteed contract, sure, that might happen. But I don't think Cousins is in a place where he'll ever agree to that.
Right now, no, I don't. And maybe never. Yeah.
Yeah, at this age. He'll get paid significantly more by going somewhere else. If he goes to the Falcons or, low-key the Commanders. I was talking to a guy named Peter out. He lives in Columbus, Ohio randomly, but a big Washington Commanders fan. And he's totally game to have Kirk back. So, I don't know. They have the most cap space in the NFL, I believe, in the Commanders. So, a lot of different places that he could go and totally get the bank again.
I agree. And we went over a list last week of some teams as well. The Raiders have to be considered there. There's just too many other viable options to not be worried about this. If you're a Vikings person who wants Cousins back, it's a sweat right now. It's definitely a sweat. Mm-hmm. Now, the silver lining is if it's not Cousins, it's a lottery ticket at your answer for the next 15 years, and that's what every team who doesn't have Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes is looking for, right, is that guy. And the Vikings, even with Cousins, don't have that guy. They have a guy who's the answer for just next year and maybe just the year after that. So if it is no more Cousins, for sure you're getting a lottery ticket. And even if you do have Cousins this year, there's a chance you still go get that lottery ticket in the draft. So that's, I think, one of the more interesting parts of this offseason for the Vikings is, will they come away from the draft with a quarterback? And if so, is it in the first round? And if so, is he the scratch-off lottery ticket that's worth $10,000, right? So, and I don't have a big opinion on anyone in this class being that guy. I'm not saying I won't get there. I'm just saying right now I look at Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams or Drake May, and I'm not pounding the table for any of those guys. Now, we are not in full-on draft season yet, and we will get there. But in my chair right now, from what I can see, I don't love anything, and I am inclined to sort of have my attention get caught by Jaden Daniels because of the high-ceiling nature that he has. Fair enough. But, it's February 8th. So we got a long ways to go. But that's a really intriguing part of this offseason for the Vikings is the quarterback of the future going to arrive?
Yeah, and your next 3 years are really predicated on that decision because whether you have a lot of money or a little amount of money, money only goes so far. And really, when you're planning your contracts, it's all predicated around what is your cap space going to be this year, next year, the year after. And having a rookie scale quarterback on a rookie scale contract drastically affects that conversation. That dramatically affects whether or not you can re-sign Danielle Hunter. It dramatically adjusts whether you go and find a new right guard and you go get the best one available. Like all those different decisions that would normally be off the table if you sign Kirk Cousins simply because the cap hit, those things change. And you're going to really change how you're planning your next 3 years. So it's a big conversation for sure across the entire building. And
Yep. The last note I have on this, Giles, is it's hard to really dig into the Vikings offseason and the plan and free agency and all that short of having finality with Cousins and Jefferson decisions. We still have to do it because we want to record episodes and talk Vikings. But it's really kind of hard to do it. It's hard to foresee what the plan should be without knowing what the intention is of Cousins. Like the Vikings don't know either if they're going to have Cousins back or not, but they have two very distinct paths already plowed out because they know what their intention is with Cousins. We don't even know what the intention is. So it's very difficult to use perspective and context and facts to paint a picture for folks about what should or could happen. Do you agree with me on that? Yeah.
100%, especially from the context that Cousins is maybe one of the best negotiators in the NFL, at least his agent is. That creates an interesting paradigm here because he's saying all these things on Radio Row. Does he actually mean them or not? Or is this all a facade to try to create more leverage when negotiating with Kwesi and Rob Brzezinski? Who knows?
That's true. There's an intent on the Cousins side as well. That's true. Because where I'm coming from the team side is if the premise is, okay, we want Cousins back because we don't believe anyone in the draft can bring the level of play up enough to compete to win this year. And we need to compete to win this year because we have Justin Jefferson and because we have Danielle Hunter, whatever. So we want him back. We're going to offer him this. Now, if he doesn't accept our offer, then we're going to do this. So that's under the intent to bring Cousins back. If there is no intent to bring Cousins back, you are doing an entirely different set of activities to embark on the offseason. You're looking at the draft. You're for quarterbacks. And you're looking at free agency and trades for other areas that you need to address in the first 40 picks. So short of, you don't know what that intention is, you cannot project or foresee because those are two very different worlds. And I cannot read the tea leaves. I tend to think that you're right, Giles, that the Vikings probably don't want to commit or guarantee more than a year at that rate with Cousins because they know that even if they do that in 2 years, they're back in the same spot looking for a guy of the future. So why not get that guy sooner rather than later? So it's just a very tough thing to project. And for us in our chairs, like we think about it, we're creating content for it. Like we want to have like opinions and thoughts and, projections. And it's a very difficult thing to do without knowing what the intent is. Because there's a handful of other things I want the Vikings to consider and go out and do. Remember, I told you I was doing a little study on linebackers because I'm like, I think that I think Brian Flores needs another awesome linebacker and could do a lot with a really versatile linebacker. So I'm looking at different linebackers that the Houston Texans have a couple that are going to hit the market, and it's this doesn't matter if you don't have your quarterback figured out, man. And you got to do that first. Yeah. So.
100%. And I think I mean, if you're trying to more accurately read the tea leaves here, if you just look at the primary motivators for a general manager for any NFL team, it's one, trying to win a Super Bowl, but also not getting fired, right? Those are counterbalanced priorities for a general manager, if we're being honest. And some of the primary reasons that a general manager would get fired is they take their shot at quarterback and they miss, and then they lose a bunch of games. Or they pick a veteran and they collapse and they don't win any games, right? And I think whether you love Kirk or hate Kirk, he's proven to have a pretty high floor when it comes to performance on the field. As long as he's healthy, he has a high floor. And if I'm Kwesi and you're trying to protect the downside, but try to also go chase a Super Bowl and lower your cap hits across the board, your best scenario is to trade up and get a quarterback, but still re-sign Kirk. So this year, you have the opportunity to go win now while your other guy develops underneath you, and you can prove, he's a guy or he's not a guy once he's in your room. And then you can say, we missed on that, but we still have Kirk under contract, so we didn't completely sell the farm on this one different option. It gives you so many different versatile options because, I mean, Kirk is arguably one of the best non-elite quarterbacks in the NFL, so you could do a lot worse than him. Are there people better? Absolutely. But when you look at the quarterbacks available, I truly think that's the best route here. It's just whether or not he's willing to sign a one-year deal, and I don't think Kirk will be, just being honest.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think he's looking for more than that, and I think there's going to be at least one team out there willing to give it to him. So we will see what happens, though, and I don't know that a week from now we'll have much more to go off of. So we may be sitting here in the same spot 1 week from now when we record the next episode of the Wobcast 2.0, but time will tell.
Exactly.
Between now and then, though, two things will happen that we should talk about in preview. The first is the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2024. I sort of gave my case for Jared Allen and all of that the last couple of weeks, and it doesn't feel like it's going to happen for him, which I'm disappointed about. And I don't know if he's running out of time or what, but we don't have to spend too much time on this because I think we're kind of on the same page and we talked about it last week. But all these things are going to be announced here in the coming days and nights, and all these NFL awards and Coach of the Year and Offensive Player of the Year and all that stuff. And class of 2024, the Pro Football Hall of Fame is going to be one of those, and I don't think Jared's going to get in. I'm disappointed about that. But I know, Giles, you're one who kind of tends to feel like he maybe deserves to get in.
Yeah, when it comes to the town of Canton, I really want to paint the town purple, and one less player is always a bad thing. So yeah, definitely rooting for Jared Allen. I did see Canton as one of the kind of the primary geographical areas in all of our viewership. So I think people are listening to us in Canton. It's just they couldn't get it quite across the finish line, but who knows?
Giles, have you been?
I have not been, but it's definitely on my bucket list. We gotta go.
Good. Yep, it should be on your bucket list. The cradle of pro football. And if you can, this goes to you and to anyone listening. It's not just go to the Hall of Fame like when you can fit it in. If you can get there on enshrinement weekend, do that.
Yep.
Do that. Yes. It's worth it.
So worth
it's more crowded. It's more expensive. But there's just so many things. As someone who's watched the game for a long time and loves it, there just are so many things that hit you in the right way when you're there at that time that you just got to do it. And I was lucky enough to be there for a handful of Vikings getting enshrined. And it's semi emotional when you're there. Like it hits you, man. It just hits you when you're there for enshrinement weekend. So absolutely deserves to be on your bucket list. And you should do it someday. All right. Super Bowl matchup, Giles. Obviously San Francisco San Francisco against Kansas City. The Niners are 1.5 point favorites. The over-under is 47.5. Two quick things for me, or storylines here for this before we get to what sort of your observations on it, and then predictions. Mahomes as an underdog is weird to me. Like he's
very weird.
It's almost like 10 years from now, you look back and be like, oh my gosh, remember when Patrick Mahomes was an underdog in the Super Bowl? How did we not bet $1 million on that? Yeah. Right? And then
slam.
Secondly, Kyle Shanahan. I like him. And I think he's worthy of a ring. So from that standpoint, I'll be happy for Kyle Shanahan if he gets a Super Bowl ring and wins this game.
I don't know. I'm really going back and forth here because I think the 49ers are a better team. But I also believe that the two teams that the Kansas City Chiefs played in the playoffs were better teams than the Chiefs. So I think if I'm a betting man, I think the Chiefs are the team to beat. I'll make a prediction here. Not only do I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl this year, not because I think they're the better the team. I think it's because they have the best coach and the best quarterback tandem, period, full stop. I also think Taylor Swift may be getting a ring on her finger on the podium.
Oh my!
I know a lot. I'm calling it. I think it's going to happen. I know a lot of people hate that storyline, but I think I'm a big fan of the NFL. I'm a big fan of the salary cap going up. That gives some way more flexibility to all the teams to do really creative things. And Taylor Swift has done nothing but upside for the NFL and getting more eyeballs on it, getting more advertisers to it. That has all the positive benefits in the world for us. So I'm here for it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But she's going to get engaged on the podium in the winner's circle. Calling it.
Love it. And I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I am, I find it. Colin Cowherd has had some great content or thoughts on this. The whole Taylor Swift and all of that, I don't get offended by that or upset with that or frustrated with that. And I've heard some people who are just so quick to be triggered by that. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. We don't get upset when they show other people in their suites, other stars and other walks of life. Why are we so pissed off about it being Taylor Swift? And then I saw a really cool stat where they were the average amount of time that Taylor Swift is shown on TV at these games, and it's 18 seconds, over the course of 3 hours. And people are they always show her. The cameras are always on her. I'm they're literally almost never on her. If you really think about it. A lot of time. Yeah. So I just don't get it. I don't get the people getting upset about it and all that, whatever. I don't care. I think it's cool. And like you're saying, it's good for the game. It's good for the financially and pop culture wise, it's good for the game. So
100%. If I'm reading the tea leaves in most of those frictionary moments, it's a lot of men who use football as a way to escape their regular lives. This is my thing. This is the thing that I get to go do. And now their wives are sitting on the couch with them saying, "Oh, I want to see T Swift." And they're like, "Please get away. This is my thing. You can't have my thing." So I think this is some marital tension coming and bubbling up.
Okay, so now one thing before we go. Big, huge Tiger Woods. Love watching Tiger Woods play golf. Love the whatever. And so for those who aren't familiar with golf or Tiger or whatever, over the last 20 years, obviously because he's so popular and so many people want to watch him, they have Tiger Cam especially when he was in his heyday and as technology advanced, whoever was broadcasting the game or the tournament, one of their sort of sister channels or sub channels would just be, a featured group, and it's Tiger Woods. Okay. So it's just so, you don't want to watch normal coverage. You just want to watch Tiger. You can turn it to channel, 226. Maybe we need that for folks and Taylor, right? So you can go into another room away from your husbands, boyfriends, dads, whoever, and you can just watch the Taylor Swift cam at the Super Bowl, right? Kind of like the Manning cast. Kind of like the Manning cast, right? So split screen, here's the game, here's T Swift. Go watch Channel 226 in the other room. Let the hardcore football junkies watch the regular broadcast in the other room. Maybe we need something like that.
We gotta make it separated. We need two TVs. I like that. Let's petition for it.
Oh, man. All right. So when the rubber meets the road and the predictions come in, I really fall. I land on the San Francisco side, Giles.
Yep. They're a better team. They truly are.
Yep.
And when you look at all position groups. Yep. That's fair.
And I am so conflicted because on the grand scale, the big picture, the historical look at it, I'm well, it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes all the way. But on a micro level, in the microwave, in this sliver of time right here, the Niners are positioned to win. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to live in this moment right here. And when I do that, I think San Francisco wins. So if I had to rubber stamp a prediction and stand on the table and declare who I think is going to win, it would be the Niners. But I think it's by a field goal, or 1 point. Like I think it is nail biter, barn burner, comes down to the last possession. Can't wait to watch it. 4 hours long, and then the Niners win a thriller. That's how I see it going.
I really like that. And honestly, as a general football fan, I know a lot of other football fans that are rooting for success, right? When you look at Hall of Famers, they're rooting for Hall of Famers. Well, thankfully, there's Hall of Famers on both sides of the ball here. So if you're just a general fan of football, it's going to be a great Sunday. It's going to be a great game. I project it to be relatively high scoring. You're going to see a lot of back and forth. 2 Hall of Fame coaches. This is what you want as a football fan. Regardless of who comes out victorious, it's going to be a great day.
Yes, totally agree. So we will have fun breaking it all down and reviewing it next week on the Wobcast 2.0, as well as talking about any other Vikings news and notes that pop up. But I think for today, Giles, we're finished, unless you have anything else you wanted to get to.
No, let's do it. Go Niners.
Yes, we will see what happens.
I just think the Chiefs are going to win.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what happens, and then excited to break it down and talk about it with you. I hope we're celebrating Jared Allen next week as well, but I don't think it's going to happen, so we'll have to keep making the case for him, and hopefully he gets in, if not this year, next year. So that'll do it for today's episode of the Wobcast 2.0. Much to discuss and talk about for the Vikings as the offseason progresses. And then, of course, next week we'll get to break down the Super Bowl, crown a champion, and then move on fully to the 2024 season. On behalf of Giles, this is Wobby signing off for now. Please like, subscribe, and follow the Wobcast 2.0 wherever you do that with the rest of your football content. And until next time, Skol Vikings.